Okay, let's call this meeting to order. This is our work session, our informal session at 9:30 on May 21st, 2013. We had talked last week about working on the block grant stuff. We had a meeting last Tuesday afternoon and didn't really come to conclusion, so we were each going to look at some things. And Jill, do you want to start off? Tell us what you found out. I guess you emailed us, but we can only do 3 projects.
Yep.
Including Fostoria.
Yes, you're limited to 3.
Okay. Currently, we have a dozen projects, $100,000, $114,000. We have $114,000 and 3 projects were allowed. We have a dozen applicants at about $460,000. All right, each of the commissioners was going to look at a project or two. Does anybody want to begin reporting what they found out?
I did go to Bettsville and met with John, who had filled out the application for them. And, you know, got to physically, I'm a visual person as well, wanted to see it. And it does incorporate also them getting a pedestrian crossing that was there that they ripped out because it was the way it was made and it was old wood and that kind of stuff. So this would also resolve that, which didn't reflect that in the application, but I do believe if they got 50% of the funding, they're still going to move forward with the project.
Okay, even if they
Like
didn't
they
get
said, it's
full
one of these
funding.
things, you kind of just go for it and that kind of stuff, so they said they'd be really happy still with that. So I thought that was good information to know.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I've been in contact with Mayor Bullion over to New Riggle, and we have a slightly different approach that we would, after talking with Jill, there is, what's that word?
Critical
Infrastructure that they can apply for a grant for $300,000, which is not really part of the CDBG grant, and they're willing to contribute $90,000.
100.
$100,000
Yes.
towards a $300,000 grant, so that would give them $400,000, which they tore the roads up over there, and they could repair the roads and do the sidewalk or the curbs and so forth, and it would not be part of the CDBG. So it was strongly recommended, and as Jill explained, that with them contributing such a large portion of that, of a $300,000 grant, they can pony up $100,000. That makes the feasibility of that going through much greater. They can share in a greater part of it. So at this point, we're pulling it out of the CDBG, and we're going to apply for that critical infrastructure.
It's a competitive set-aside grant. That all of it, block grant and all the competitive set-asides all have to be applied for on the same day. So the deadline for all of them is June 21st.
Okay.
Yeah, but a very key element to this is that they're willing to contribute $100,000 towards a project, and it makes it much more feasible to go through.
I think
That'll
that's,
certainly help in their scoring.
as we talked about last week, I think that's very reasonable, because there's no way we could do the 100,000 that they were asking for, so this is a shot, but it's a shot.
Yeah. And then in addition to that, in discussing with New Riggle and talking with Jill, there's a possibility that I'm sorry, not New Riggle, Fostoria, that they could apply for a neighborhood revitalization, or
Yep.
if I use the right words,
Revitalization
which would be an additional $300,000 loan or grant that would not have to go through CDBG. So we could pull these out of CDBG and use them for other worthwhile projects. So that would give an opportunity of $300,000 for Fostoria for community revitalization, $300,000 for New Riggle for the critical infrastructure thing, and that still leaves the $114,000 that we have for the block grant intact. Mayor Keckler requested, kind of a difficult situation, is that of the 114, basically about 25 of that could go to Fostoria, but because there's the 3 maximum of 3 projects we can go with, the mayor mentioned that his priority would be the ADA accessible thing to the city building, which is about 9,500.
That's the fourth one on the
That's
list.
the fourth one on the list. That would be his priority. Now, we have to decide is we could possibly get another one of their priorities in, but that would only leave, you know, since that would take two in Fostoria, it only leaves one elsewhere. So I don't think there's any problem if we would use one in Fostoria and the others, yes.
May I add to that, just before you make that final determination, and finding out some more information about it, I was able to conclude, I guess, that if the city of Fostoria is willing to agree to accept the county applying for the city of Fostoria for the NRG, which is the Neighborhood Revitalization Grant funding, they would consider that as the county's contribution for the FY13 CDBG, and so in lieu of using any of the county's block grant money, if the county applies for the city of Fostoria for that up to maximum of $300,000, that they would consider that as their project or their thing for the grant year. But we have to have, the county has to have a letter from the CEO or the mayor stating that. I talked to Dan Thornton yesterday, and he said that would be his recommendation to the administration in Fostoria. Of course, I think their council meeting is tonight, I believe he said. So that he wouldn't be able, you know, to provide that without their meeting and discussing it. But he would recommend that to them, and then it would be up to the mayor to provide that letter to the county, so then the county could use that whole $114,000 elsewhere.
So you're saying that if we applied for this, like Mr. Zoller was saying, this 300,000, that could possibly count as that project for
Yes,
Fostoria?
as long as they agree to it, to that being the deal for this FY13 timeframe.
And that did not particularly apply to any of these four,
No,
that applied to
Okay.
a different project.
But are they gonna count that as one of the three?
no.
Okay.
No, they would not.
I
They would
would still
still have three
recommend
then.
that we would then also, as one of the three for the CDBG, that we look at the, which the mayor seemed to be very insistent on it, for the ADA accessible for the city building, which is at a lower, it's only 9,500, and that would leave roughly 105,000, 100,000 for the county. So that way, in essence, Fostoria would get two grants, one for the neighborhood revitalization, which is
Which is
300,000.
competitive, so there's no guarantees
Yeah,
on,
yeah.
on those two subsides, but then this other one would be a
Yeah.
guarantee, well, as
Right.
long as everything is submitted and it meets the requirements.
Well, I talked to the Village of Bloomville, Janice Wiesner is the clerk over there, and they're looking at upgrading their handicapped accessible type stuff. This is, if you know where the stoplight is in Bloomville, the only stoplight in Bloomville, County Road 19 goes the one direction. This is New Haven Street, goes the other way. It'd be half a block either side of 19. It'd be curbs, catch basins, sidewalks, and pavement. They're asking for 40,000, and they're going to commit 37,000 and change to that project.
Now, wait a second, it's got, so you're looking at the difference of 37 versus the 40, 77 is the total project?
Yeah, 77 total,
Oh,
40 is
okay,
what they're
okay,
asking for.
okay, I'm with you.
So it's like all of them, it's a good project. And then I talked to Larry from SCAT, and basically this, they take this money, and whatever money they can raise privately, they get money from United Way, from fairs, from private entities that give towards SCAT, and they use that for federal and state matches. So the more they throw into that pot, the more match they get. So this just affects that. All good projects. So we'll throw it open for discussion, I guess.
There's still, the max is 3.
Max is 3, plus we can apply for these other 2. And then we have 4 projects back there of our own. As I thought about it this last week, I thought we had to do one from Fostoria, one for the county projects, and one of something else. But that's just my thought. And then apply for the revitalization from Fostoria and the critical infrastructure for New Rico.
Is there any way Betsville can contribute? I mean, what my feeling would be is certainly the Fostoria, the ADA accessible thing. And then, and because New Rigo, since that's kind of can be taken care of out of the CDBG, is we look at Bloomville and Betsville, but you can see now putting all three of those together, we're over. Can Betsville contribute something, or instead of doing the whole 87,000, could they cut that down to 60,000? They cut, and could they?
Yeah,
They
if you
can?
gave them 45,000, they'd be happy. They'd be happy, happy as clams. So, yeah, we're talking to them, he says we would be happy with whatever we get. We put in, you know, we had the engineer's estimate, which, on the project, so forth, but he said if we could get, you know, about half, that's, 45 is over half, I'm just rounding it. If we got that, he says, you know, it'll just help our other monies go, you know, further, the more we get, but we're, you know.
At this point, I'm against any of the county projects, and a lot, especially because of the SCAT. I think that we just put up a new facility and so forth. I would rather spend these funds in other areas, you know, out within the county. My suggestion would be Betsville, the 45,000, Bloomville, the 40,000, and then the city of Fostoria.
That gets us to about,
So that doesn't get, that gives us.
yeah, 95,000.
Yeah.
Can't round anybody's up, can we, Joe? Well, you could, you could then give Betsville a little more than what they, than
Yeah,
45.
yeah, absolutely,
Use
yeah.
up the,
Yeah,
to get our full allocation that we're allowed, right? So we could do it that way.
which is 114.
Yeah, it'd be 94.5,
And
right?
I agree with Commissioner Stacy, just kick the Betsville up so they could do a little more of the project than what they originally.
I'm not against that, but I still think as commissioners, our main responsibility is to the county, and we have several parking lots. You know, parking lots, you don't seem all that important, but we do need to maintain that infrastructure as well. But they're all good projects.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
not
yeah,
a bad
absolutely.
project in the bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I looked at the county repaving, and I think we're still in a situation we could get by in a couple of years with the county repaving.
and we can use some recycled funds as noted here on some of these.
Yes, we couldn't do all the projects.
No, we wouldn't do
could-
all of them, but we
We
might
could
go
do some
get-
of the projects through recycle
We might
funds.
be able to do one or two of them there.
What's
smaller
your
ones.
opinion?
I think since we could possibly use some recycled funds to get some of those done, and we aren't gonna get obviously our whole wish list done, I liked the idea of doing the other three.
Bloomville, Betsville, and
And-
the ADA and Fostoria.
And the ADA
Okay.
Fostoria.
Okay. So, let me get my calculator here again. So we're saying 9,500 for Fostoria, is that correct?
Mhm, mhm.
Okay.
Correct.
And then the full 40 for Bloomville?
Bloomville, and then whatever the balance is for Betsville, which, and they have estimates on this, Commissioner Stacy?
Yes.
Of 87,000?
Yep.
And they can feasibly do 2/3 of the project and still be okay?
Yeah, yep.
That would, oops, I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, they just said they would not look a gift horse in the mouth. They would be absolutely thrilled with,
That would leave them 64,500 if my calculator's working right. I guess that is critical that they actually can do the project.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
they won't come back later and say, we can't do it. Here's your money back when it's too late. to-
Or can they contribute something to get it up? The 87,000 would be a completed project, correct?
correct.
Can they contribute something to it?
Well, obviously, they plan to, if he said he'd take half and still be able to complete a project with it,
Bingo.
yeah.
Bingo.
Total
And,
cost is.
and the problem is we can't pick a fourth project to give any.
Yeah, that would be nice.
You should have additional projects in mind, so that if anything doesn't, if any of these would happen to fall through, for whatever reason, that you have additional projects that we can plug in place. So in the resolution that we do, you should not only have these 3 projects as the target, or, you know, your targets, but then you need a couple, or maybe even rate the rest of these in the order you would like to see them if it happens that you can do,
Oh,
that you need the other
Yeah.
ones. Because you're no longer allowed to do amendments to this grant,
okay.
so we need to have it all laid out in advance.
Okay, okay. So do we need to rank these 1, 2, and 3 of these 3 that we choose?
No, because you just did by assigning the dollar figures to those,
Okay.
but the remaining ones, if
The-
you can rank those, so that way, if anything happens to the first 3, that you have the other ones to fall back on.
Basic, I got Fostoria, the ADA as 1. I got the Bloomville as 1. I got the Bettsville as 1. Now, the remaining ones open, then classify which ones you would consider the second. The 3 that are second, and then maybe then the 3 that would be the third ranking, as I understand it.
Well, then I guess we can get into some of our projects.
Go into the
then.
county. That's where I would
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Do you know which one's the greatest need?
Which lots, CSB and the Job and Family
Family
Services?
Services and then Court Street.
I would say the CSB, just because I think we could probably get some shuffling of money around with Job and Family Services that they could maybe help us,
Okay.
so.
So 2 would be Job and Family Services, 28,000, repaving of Court Street.
Well, she's saying that the most
Actually,
important
it's-
one would be CSB. That'd be the 3rd one on the list.
And now, based on the dollar figure, and it's not a matter, they can't return just, if they didn't use, let's say, Bloomville used 35,000 instead of 40,000, that 5,000 we don't get to reassign. It'd be only if they canceled their project altogether that we'd have money to reallocate.
I know last year, or 2011's, when Republic declined use of those
Yeah.
funds, we could use that towards the other project if it exceeded the original estimate. So it's possible that you could use, a portion of that and do a smaller project on.
I guess I was
the
wondering
county.
if we should not select one as one that's higher than any return we're possible to
Yeah, I
get,
think that's a
unless
good
they
idea.
both canceled.
I think that's good.
And since one's, I guess I'm gonna think the Fostoria thing, gonna move. The other ones, like I said, they've got their own portions of those to put in, so if something was to happen, it's a little more probable, I guess, one of those. So I'm wondering if we wanna prioritize one that's least under that $40,000 threshold as number
Oh,
one,
well, I think if we,
or does it matter?
if we we would find some sort of match
Okay,
here to
okay.
make up the
I
difference.
understand. All right, then I'm okay with that. Just wanted to ask that.
Okay. Is that okay? The CSB being
So
our
CSB one.
first backup, and then,
Mhm,
and then Job and Family next backup?
Mhm.
Either one of those for Job and Family?
Okay.
Okay, so let's make sure we're on the same page here. You tell me if I'm saying this right. We're going to choose City of Fostoria ADA, basically project number 4 for 9,500. Village of Bloomville then, $40,000.
Mhm.
Village of Bettsville, 64,500.
That's our first priority there.
Those 3
Mhm.
are our first
If
priority.
anything falls out of that, the second batch of priorities,
Would be the CSB building number 1 and Job and Family number 2. And then in addition to that, we are applying for the neighborhood revitalization for Fostoria in the amount of 300,000. Is that
A
correct?
maximum of 300,000, and it looks like it'll be probably that amount.
And we're applying for the Village of New Regal under the Critical Infrastructure Program for 300,000, which both of those are competitive. Does that sound like what we all said? Okay. Okay, and then Joe, we'll put this together and announce it at the second public hearing, which is June the
4th.
4th.
At
okay.
10:30.
10:30, okay. Anything else you need for the block grant stuff? Anything else for work session let's go to the public first. Anything from the public for work session? You're thinking, Tom.
Yes, I got something I'd like to bring up. It's about the county cemetery. We've talked about this before. And I was gonna go out there this week, but I didn't. There's either 4 or 5 graves that have no permanent markers out there. They've got the metal stains. Now, I was out there a month and a half ago, well, when I was able to drive back. I don't know when it was. And one of them had blown away, and I found the insert laying across the ways and stuff. But I feel it's up to you people to put new stones in for those graves. I think that's the county's job to do that. Now, there's a lot of broken ones, there's 49 broken ones out there. But the scouts are, as you know, are gonna try to repair those. But the graves that don't have a marker, a permanent marker, I feel it's up to the county to do that. To get all of them basically the same. That's been a pet peeve of mine for a long time to fix that cemetery. But those graves, I feel, need to have permanent markers.
I agree with you, it's the county's responsibility there. That's my opinion, I agree with you. Well, who does that? Our maintenance department or?
Dean has ordered some markers, and as far as I knew, they were up.
Who?
They're not stones,
Dean
but
Dean Distel.
he had went and put some up just recently. He ordered some sign, I don't know exactly what they look like. He said that it was a funeral home that he bought that from.
I'd have to go check the bill.
Yeah, but I know he's got them up out there, that he's got them up. Any of them that you couldn't read anymore or didn't have the markers at all, he's got these up. I can have him bring it, sample of what they look like over.
I thought they said they were metal. I
Might
think
be.
that's what the bill said.
What's the status of our scout? I have not heard anything since his initial visit.
I talked to, I can't say the kid's name now, he called me up about 2 weeks ago, and he had some monies. And he said he was gonna come down here and talk to you people, and I thought it would be, the way he talked, this was 2 weeks ago he had called me. He had some money, now I don't know how much.
There was a young man made a presentation 6 months ago, a year ago, about an Eagle Scout project
Okay.
of fixing up that county cemetery, and I had not heard anything since.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything, like 2 weeks ago he had called me, he told me he had monies, but he didn't.
Cemeteries are a problem. You look at all these township cemeteries around the county, and they're just in very bad shape. These things get old, they wear out. You
I
know,
agree.
that's just,
I agree.
just a fact of
Well,
life.
on the same line with that, the stones that are broken out there, they were broken by county employees. They don't fall over by themselves. They don't get broken in half by themselves. I mean, I mowed that cemetery for several years, and it's difficult. But if you break a stone, if I'm working for the county and I break a stone, the buck stops there, right? I mean, when I break something, if I broke one of those, whoever was operating on it, the buck stops there. I think those need to be repaired, but that's not what I'm referring to the ones that don't have markers, right? But I'm
Yeah.
really concerned. But I didn't know that Dean went out. You had mentioned that, but I didn't know he'd been out there.
I'll get an update and I'll let you know.
I'll be out there this afternoon.
Anything else the public would like to bring up?
Hey, Joe Gucci, I got some questions, reference to 53. Okay, does anybody, you know, there's supposedly a study on that and everything like that, does anybody have any idea if that was what time of the year that study might have been made or anything like that?
I have a copy of it, but I don't know exactly when that is.
Dates. Remember the dates.
It was dated January 27th, 2005. I don't know when it was,
Yeah.
when
yeah.
it was.
Well, if
What was
okay,
going on?
the reason why I'm getting to that is, and I used to do some fishing in Lake Erie, and a boat and everything like that. There's a lot of traffic in the summertime comes up 53 from Upper Sandusky, clear up to Fort Clinton and the Bass area and Marblehead. If that was taken at any other time, it don't reflect the true traffic on that road. If it was taken in September, October, a lot of that traffic just went away. If it was taken in March and April, a lot of that traffic never appeared. You go May, June, July, August, it makes a lot of difference because a lot of boats, anybody who lived in here town goes up through, sees Sandusky Street, go out through there. There's boats go out there all the time. People pulling boats. And that just isn't 53. They're pulling people from Columbus area, Central Ohio, North Central Ohio. And that's got to reflect something on what their evaluation of that project would be as far as 53 is concerned. If they totally ignored that, they would have done it on purpose.
I wonder if we have any control on when they do a study.
Well,
Make
this-
sure there's certain times of the year, I mean, because
Well, this one was paid for by the county, so I would guess we'd have had control at the time. I don't think this is so much a traffic study as a Super 2 feasibility study as to what it costs to build up the road to make it a Super 2 status. That's the way I read it. I didn't see any numbers about cars here. I saw what you'd need for pavement and how much it would cost to do this and that to make it a
But I think the traffic would reflect a lot on the need.
Sure, sure.
And if they're taking that at a time when the traffic's at the low versus at the high, it's not a true evaluation of that road, period, And I was just wondering when it was. And another thing too, and I think this was brought up, the amount of traffic on that road, or the population of the area of that road, reflects somehow on how they evaluate the accident rate and fatalities and stuff on that. Okay, if you go out there and you get 10 fatalities a year on that, and there's 100,000 people contribute to it, and you get 15 fatalities a year in Toledo with 300,000 people on it, which is worse? In other words, the Toledo area is going to get more influence because of the extra population, not because of the accident rate or anything else relative to that. So that ought to have a bearing on what they do with that road. If it's like I've heard already, that's pretty dangerous relative to the amount of traffic on the road. Don't squeak for $300,000 people in Toledo versus 100,000 in this area, when the relative dangers are more in this area, even though the total accidents and so forth are less. There's got to be a reflection there somehow. And I mean, I'm not a highway person, but I would think right offhand, if the amount of traffic is less with a higher rate of accidents, you better start paying some attention to it, regardless of the population, regardless of the political implications. It's politics, a lot of it, and that's not right. You got to look at reality.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the public? Anything from the board for the work session? All right, well, it's 9:59. Why don't we just roll right into the regular session then? We will begin that with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's sign the journal. Thank you, Joe, for coming. Appreciate
Sure,
it.
thanks.
thanks, Joe.
And do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
Have a motion to approve the minutes as outlined.
Second.
Okay, vote on that, please.
Commissioner Zoller?
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes.
Commissioner Wetton?
Yes.
Can I do a roll call?
Hey, let's do that too.
Commissioner Wagner?
Yes, I'm here.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes.
Commissioner Zoller?
Yes.
I will be glad next year when one of you is in this. I can remember. Okay,
I
now,
prefer to be a peon.
that's my old business. Do you have anything for us in
No,
old
not
business?
today.
Nicole? Holly, you have any old business?
No.
Okay. Mr. Zoll? One little piece of old business. Has anybody heard anything about the Memorial Day ceremony? I mean, we got an invitation to the parade. Usually Jim Roberts comes up and talks about the ceremony at the statue and usually has us say a few words, but we've not heard anything. Okay. I'll contact him and let you guys know if maybe they're doing it differently this year, maybe they're not inviting us this year, I don't know, who knows? And Jim has had some health problems too, so maybe he's just not as on top of it as he used to be, I don't know. Yeah, he might not be in charge of it anymore, that's true, might be somebody else doing it. I'll try and let you know before Monday when I
Okay.
find out.
Good.
Okay, new business.
New business. I have a resolution, these in order. Let's see, who's probably. Resolution, a supplement to the permanent appropriations for the Seneca County Ditch Maintenance Fund 017 for 2013, putting $55.62 into workers' comp. I have a supplement to the permanent appropriation to the Seneca 3 Trust Bridge Rehabilitation LPA 1301 Fund 091, putting $25,191 into the 3 Trust Bridge Rehabilitation Fund. I have a appropriation adjustment within the Real Estate Assessment Fund 016, moving $143.74 from contract services to workers' comp. I have a supplement to the permanent appropriation for the Title Administration Fund 155, putting $10,000 into the transfers outline.
These three will be the things that Mary Ward talked about.
Yes.
Giving us money, moving it back so she can buy equipment.
Correct. I have a resolution authorizing a fund transfer be made to the general fund, moving $10,000 from transfers out in title administration to the transfers in of the general fund. I have a supplement to the permanent appropriations for the general fund for 2013, putting $10,000 into equipment. I have an appropriation adjustment within the revolving loan fund 094, putting $97 from supplies to other expense. I have a resolution authorizing an appropriation adjustment within the Community Housing Improvement Program FY11 Fund 157, moving $36.81 from salaries to workers' comp. I have a resolution authorizing a fund advance from the general fund to the Moving Ohio Forward Fund 073. This is $3,000 from our advances out to the advances in of the Moving Ohio Forward Fund.
Moving Ohio Forward is the money that came through the Attorney General's office to help take down some of these
Blight homes.
blight homes, abandoned properties and so on. So this is just up front. We get this money back as the money is recouped. So it's another grant that we're working on.
Okay, I have a resolution setting time, date, and place to receive sealed bids for the Seneca VAR Chip Seal Program 2013. The date will be Tuesday, June 11th at 10:30 a.m. here at the Commissioner's office. I have a resolution authorizing the disposal of unneeded, obsolete, or unfit county-owned property. These are, let's see, requests from the engineer, putting vehicles onto the gov deals. And he's got a 1993 Ford pickup and a 1999 Ford pickup, sold for $779 and $817.95. I have a resolution authorizing Seneca County Board of Commissioners to enter into a contract with R&I Construction for the Seneca County Road 38-9.32 Bridge Rehabilitation, LPA 1204. And I have a resolution rejecting all bids received May 2013 for the County Road 14-1.69 pre-stressed box beams. I think that's it.
Okay, is there a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Seconded. Any discussion on any of those? Once again, I'd comment, that was a heck of a good bid from R&I Construction. We're happy that a local company would get that
Yeah.
major bridge replacement. Other discussion? Okay, roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Solar?
Yes.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes.
Commissioner White?
Yes. Okay, a new business, any more new business?
No.
Mr. Zoll?
Yeah, a couple things. We elected earlier in the year to only pay regional planning 50% of what was due them, because we were evaluating the whole value of regional planning, and since then, I think we've all agreed that there's value that we're getting out of regional planning, and they're asking for payment of the balance of their year. Is there a reason, would there be a reason we would continue to hold it back? What have we done in previous years? Do we pay it all at the beginning of the year, or is this normal?
This is not normal. Normally they pay at the beginning of the year, and
Okay.
I'd kind of forgotten we did that. What's the wishes of the board?
Didn't we were gonna do it, we'd do the one in January and the next one in the next
June or July.
June or July, which if you guys want us to pay it, we just have to call her and have her invoice us. We can do it now. It's up to you.
If in the past we've paid it all at first, I understand why we withheld some payment. We were evaluating the whole value of that, and since then, I think we've agreed that there is value from regional planning, and I would recommend that we go ahead and just pay that invoice then.
Do you have any opinions on that?
No, I think that's fine. By the time we process it, now it'll be June when it goes through, I mean,
Okay.
so.
We'll let the staff get that ready then for whenever they can get that processed. Okay.
Next issue is, I know we've received, I don't know if this is public or not, but the Mrs. Wright out on 231, apparently there's some issues out there with drainage and issues with one landowner to the other landowner, and we've been put on notice from her legal counsel. What is the next step that we go from here? What is the next step?
To do something, there's a landowner that is asking us, if she feels she has flooding problems caused by a neighboring landowner, and we do have some authority to order a landowner to do something and then put the repairs on their taxes. That doesn't happen very often, but we do follow the lead of the Soil and Water District. Jason was supposed to get back with me today, but in talking with Tricia yesterday at Soil and Water, they do not feel that the neighbor is causing the problem. They feel that the lady that has complained has basically caused her own problem by installing a tile improperly. So the downstream neighbor, in order to correct the problem that she created, would have to reconstruct their ditch, and the downstream neighbor says, I didn't cause the problem, I'm not gonna do it. Soil and Water's not recommending at this point that we force the downstream neighbor to do anything because they did not cause the obstruction.
Well, we need to respond back to her attorney, then, that that's our opinion, and if they decide to take it further and get us involved, then we'll have to turn it over to our prosecutor and so forth, but I would think it is in our best interest to at least respond back to her attorney and.
I
So
would-
Jason's gonna give you something in writing.
I would recommend that we wait to hear from Jason, which should be today, and say something like, at the recommendation of Soil and Water Office, they do not recommend that we take action in this matter, or something to that effect.
Okay.
Does that sound
Yeah,
reasonable?
as long as we respond back to the attorney, and however they decide to proceed from there is really their business.
Drainage really brings out the worst in neighbors, and that's why we have Soil and Water to inform us of who's who's correct in these matters and who's not.
And I think the prosecutor, he had gotten that too, so he was gonna draft up a letter.
Okay.
Talking with Soil and Water, so.
Okay, okay.
Actually, I think I seen an email from him this morning, I just hadn't had a chance to read it yet,
Yeah,
so.
we'll probably have that by next Tuesday,
Yeah.
I would think, some
Yeah.
sort of, something we can sign to send to Mr. Barga.
Yeah.
Is it customary for this board to act on the request last week of the guy with the shooting range and so forth? I mean, again, I don't know the protocol, but that was something that was brought to this commission, and I think, you know, based on our findings, we don't have any jurisdiction in that. But I think that's something we should at least, again, I don't know the protocol, but I would think that we would at least report back that. And
Well,
Jeff, you
we-
can expand on that.
We have no statutory authority to do anything. We cannot go to the shooting range and say, knock it off, or build a bigger fence, or anything like that. We have no statutory authority. That's under the Division of Wildlife. I talked to Mr. Ward, was his name? Claude, not Ward, Claude, Perry, afterwards, and told him that I'd talked to the sheriff, and the sheriff's doing his own investigation. And I don't know what all's public and what's not, but they have sent the guns away to be tested to see if the bullet actually came from it. Talked to the owner of the shooting range, and they've suspended all classes until this is resolved, so the immediate issue is taken care of. And who else did we talk to on that? I talked to Mr. Devine, who said that we don't have any authorities. I think we've done all that we can do under the
Okay, I
authorities
just, I
that we
mean,
have.
if I was the neighbor and somebody's shooting at my house, I know I'd wanna
Yep, yep.
certainly make sure that we're taking action
Yeah.
here, that's pretty serious.
And I told Mr. Perry all of this, and he's not gonna let it go. I mean, he's gonna push
Yeah.
every avenue
So
he
he'll
can.
go to the Division of,
He's already
Yeah, he'll
called
go
the
to them.
Division of Wildlife,
Was-
when they haven't called him back, so I told him to talk to his representative, and
Yeah.
they can
right.
push him a
Push it
little
through
bit.
it.
Okay. Couple, I hate to go on and on,
No,
but a couple other things is, we received a letter from other commissioners requesting us to support the LGFI funds, and I assume we have already sent that support in to our legislatures and so forth, so I mean, I think that's important that, you know, if we have,
Yeah. And
Pardon?
Nikki's even
We had
sent
signed
a
those
letter.
letters, that was for that, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just asking that, because I wasn't sure.
Yeah, and Nikki did a letter to respond to Shelby County, letting them know that.
Which is right here
Okay.
for us to sign.
Yep.
okay, that's good, I just want to make sure that we are
It's in the
following
code.
up. And lastly, just wanted to mention that, I know we have some disagreements with the board on the $5 permissive tax and so forth, and understand that, you know, the public meetings and so forth, just so everyone's aware, I haven't let this lie. I'm having a lot of response, and we are within the coming weeks, and again, I don't know the protocol, but we're gonna be in a position that we'd like to call a public meeting for that. So again, I don't know how we go about that. There's some information that we have to gather to be able to respond back to some of the concerns. And so we're gathering that information now. And what is the procedure for calling the public meeting?
We have to have a resolution, I understand, that outlines the schedule.
We would have to set a time and date through a board resolution, and then there's a certain amount of time you have to advertise for, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
It'll be like 2 weeks.
2 consecutive weeks, so
Yeah,
many
2
days in
consecutive
advance.
weeks. Probably give it like, I think for the Wolf Creek or whatever, we did it like a week after the second hearing. Or the week after the second advertisement, we had a hearing. That way people had time to, and for those, I always say to advertise them on a Sunday, because that's when most of the people get the paper.
Okay, so the protocol is that we have to make a resolution from this board that we're
Setting time, date, and
petitioning
place.
a meeting.
Well,
at-
it would just be setting a public hearing.
Okay, a public hearing, and then we have to advertise it 2 consecutive weeks, and
Right,
then
so-
theoretically would be a week after. So if we were ready today and we're not ready, we're still gathering this information to be able to outline it clearly to everyone. So if we were to announce it today, it would
Because it
be
would
3
just-
weeks from now.
Right, it would be
Okay, and I'm
setting
not-
time, date, and place for blah, 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 this day, this time, and this is where it's gonna be.
And there's 2.
Yeah, I have to have 2, yeah.
Yeah.
We would advertise, you know, I always think of Sunday just because
Okay.
that's something that catches people's attention.
It's no different than the block grant public hearings,
Right.
you know, we have to
Okay.
advertise those ahead of time and other public.
So the
hearings.
first procedure is once we've got our facts and are ready to present it, would be to come back to this board and then request a meeting that we would have to make a resolution.
You don't need a bunch of people to do that, you just say, let's.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just trying to understand.
But just let us know.
The
ahead of time
government
so we have
procedure.
resolutions.
Okay.
Yeah, and, yeah, if this board wants to proceed with either putting it on the ballot or imposing it, then we'd have to have those two public hearings, so.
Yeah, yeah.
Just say when you wanna do it, if you wanna proceed further,
And we
pick a time when you wanna do it, and let's.
Mhm.
We normally set the second public hearing at the end of the first one.
Pardon?
Do we, or do we set them at the same?
We can read through that thing and see if it says any different. And Brad Cole, I'm sure, would help us work through a schedule to make sure we.
Well,
It
we'll need
seems
to
like-
find that information, because it will be forthcoming. If it's gonna be next week, I'm ready to announce that. Again, we're trying to gather this information is to answer everyone's questions and to be able to outline it much more clearly as to the reasons and what we're trying to achieve and so forth and so on. So until I've got that together, I'm not ready to petition this commission for that meeting, but it is forthcoming.
It seems like we'd set them at the same time. It seems like we'd set one this week and one the next week.
Well, yeah, because there is parameters on the number of days they can and can't be apart from each other.
Yeah,
So it's gonna force us it.
it said no less than 3 and no more than 10, is that?
Yeah.
Pardon, 3 and 10?
Sheet you gave me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the 3 and 10? I didn't hear that.
The second hearing after the first hearing, the second hearing has to be within, I've still got that paper here. 2 public hearings must be held before the adoption. The second hearing must be no less than 3 or more than 10 days after the first hearing.
So you could, it
Okay.
could be this public hearing at 10 and the next one at 3.
Right, it has to be, I know.
Okay, good. I'm gonna be, it's good information.
I appreciate your attention to details.
That I'm not, that's why I wanna make sure that we're doing this properly.
No, you had a lot of details there. in your- that's-
I'm not a detail
We're making
person.
progress.
Maybe after 4 years, you'll.
Okay, is that all?
That's it.
You got any- Did I ask you already? It's been so long since we've.
No, I don't have any. Whether you ask or not, I don't even
I don't
know.
have any new business either. Okay, it's 11:08 or 10:18. We have some folks here from the Scenic River Program. I assume that's you guys?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
You just
Would
state
you like
your name.
me
You
to-
can stand up or you can sit down, whatever you're comfortable with.
Okay, I'll stand up. The program manager for the Scenic Rivers program was supposed to be here today. His name is Bob Gable, but he had a
Excuse
death
me.
in the family.
First thing, you announce your name because this is being
Okay,
taped.
and I am here on his behalf. My name is Natalie Purvu, P-I-R-V as in Victor, U. And I am the Central Region Manager for the Scenic Rivers program. So I have oversight of the Darby, Mohegan, Kokosing, and Olentangy rivers. And I lived here in Seneca County for 4 years. Well, I went to Heidelberg, so I feel like I'm home today.
Welcome.
Thank you. I do feel like I'm home. And I'm here today to introduce you to our newest manager in your region. This is Christina Kugley.
Hello.
Christina comes to us from Kentucky, and she has oversight of the Maumee and Sandusky rivers. To give you a little background about our program, if you're not familiar with it, the Ohio Scenic Rivers program was the first scenic rivers program in the nation, so we predated the National Scenic Rivers program. We began in 1968, and the purpose of our program is to protect Ohio's remaining high-quality rivers, and you are very fortunate because you have one running through your community. The Sandusky River was designated into our program in 1970, so it was the second river of 14 designated across the state. So you're very lucky. There's only 14 rivers that meet our strict qualifications for a scenic river. It's designated from Wyandotte County, Harrison Park off of Old Route 30, to Roger Young Park in Fremont. So that's 65 miles of river that has excellent, we look at river corridors, so how many trees are there. We look at fish and the bugs and the water chemistry, and the Sandusky River met all of that. So it receives some extra special protection from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources. We're in the Division of Watercraft, and we provide landowner assistance. So if somebody does have an issue with the river, you talked about drainage problems, we would be here to assist landowners, and that would be Christina's role. We have a huge volunteer program across the state where we train people to go out and look for bugs in the river. And those bugs tell us how clean or dirty the water is. And we do have sites throughout town. We've worked with schools right here in the city before. So we take school children out, scout groups, church groups, gives them an excuse to play in the river. We also have jurisdiction over any public project that uses tax dollars within 1,000 feet of the river, outside of municipal limits. So if there was a bridge replacement, for instance, Indian Mill. Are you familiar with Indian Mill in Wyandotte County? Indian Mill is actually one of our properties. We do buy properties to protect them. And there's the old Steel Truss Bridge that goes over the Olentangy. So we do have approval authority over that bridge project. So we work with ODOT to make sure that extra trees aren't cut down and they're staying out of the river. So if you have any of those sorts of projects, you would work with Christina on that. And we did bring some additional information for you, because I'm sure you don't have enough paperwork already.
Thank you.
I don't know, we're the state. We probably have more paperwork than you.
How are you funded?
We're funded from a couple of different ways. We do have a license plate, so the specialty plates that you can purchase through the Department of Motor Vehicles. We have a heron and a fish plate that you can buy. A big chunk of our funding does come from those plates. Most of the money from the plate sales goes towards the purchase of land or working with kids. So buying that equipment to go play in the river. The Division of Watercraft is not funded by any general tax dollars. Our revenue is from the sale of gasoline tax. So 1/8 of 1% or something, very small, goes to fund Watercraft, plus grants. We receive, some years we have over $1 million in grant money that our program receives. So there's only 8 of us across the state, and we don't cost a lot, but we do a lot of good work. So in your packets, you'll find general brochures about our program, about our volunteer program, and I also put in there a copy of our laws. So if you have a question about any of that, that's included. Christina's card is in there, so if you ever want to put her to work, she's actually working with the Wyandotte County Commissioners later today on a couple pieces of property. So, do you have any questions for us or Christina? Christina, do you have anything more to say?
Well, I'm just really excited to be able to come work with everyone and try to get as engaged with the communities as I possibly can. Like Natalie said, I'm going to be working in Wyandotte with the commissioners later today, cleaning up some storm damage and downed trees. And so that's work I like to do. So as she said, don't hesitate to call me up and put me to work if it's something around the scenic rivers, or if there are school children that are really interested in getting involved in stream quality monitoring. I'm more than happy to come out and try to help them get more involved. And I really want to try to be as helpful as I can. So please don't hesitate to contact me or ask me questions, and I'll try to help in any way possible. If I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody who does know it.
I'll come back up and I'll hang out in Tiffin.
So the Sandusky River was considered as one of 14 rivers?
It's one of the 14 best rivers in this state. So what happens is our program is community driven. A community contacts us and says, we think we have really something special in our backyard. So somebody around here before 1970 contacted our program and said, listen, we think the Sandusky's awesome. Can you come and do a study on it? So we come to your community and we create a report. And we look at everything. Like I said, we look at how many trees are next to your river, because we want to see a lot, the riparian corridor, the tree area next to the river, we want to see that. We look at your water chemistry, we look at what kind of bugs and fish do you have in your river. We look at how many low head dams you have, because we like it to be free flowing. You look at cultural value, historical value, and at the end of that study, we decide if it meets our criteria, which are pretty strict. And your river did. Once we decide if your river meets the criteria, we open it up for public comment. So just like you guys, we submit a notice to the newspapers and say, we're opening this up for at least a 30-day period where folks can come and talk to us if they have concerns or questions about our program. And as long as the community is supportive, then our director of the Department of Natural Resources officially designates the river in his journal as a state scenic river. So back in 1970, that happened to you. So it really is something to be proud of, because we have studied rivers in the past that don't meet the qualifications. So it says a lot that folks in your community care enough about your river that they would protect it for this many years.
Now, I haven't heard any complaints in a long time, but I have years ago heard complaints from the trustees that you were holding up their road projects. You better at working with that?
Whenever a project gets sent in to me, I process it as fast as I can. That's usually the first priority, because I certainly don't want to hold up anybody's projects. It's very important for the economic growth of communities just to have that done. And also, I just don't want to be a pain in the rear end. So I'll try to process that as best I can and try to keep it open and
All right, well, good.
just try to be helpful. So
And I think that we drive on the roads, we drive on the bridges, we want safety, we want the bridges to be back open, we want the roads open. And now that my father's a township trustee, I definitely make sure I see it from both ends. So
Who's your father?
His name is Dale Garbrick. He lives in Crawford County.
Oh, okay.
So he's a trustee for Whetstone. But I can't speak for managers in the past. I don't know what it was like.
I've only been here for 4 months.
Yeah, this was 15 years ago.
I was in elementary
you were a
school.
baby.
But yeah, we try to make sure that we process that stuff, because we know that you guys have deadlines just like we do. So.
And that's another step I'm taking too, is also to go around and try to meet trustees, try to meet as many of the local leaders as possible. And I know Cindy Brooks has been in here, and so I've already been working with Cindy Brooks also, and I'm trying to get as connected as possible.
Okay, great.
Great.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for
Appreciate
It's
it.
nice to meet you. It's good to be home.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good to know.
I see Cindy has left the building.
She's been dealing with
She got a bad cough.
Now,
I have to scare her.
is her thing is not a bid, is it? It's just
No, I
information?
think she was just giving information.
Okay, well then we don't have a particular meeting until she gets back.
She's recovered.
Yeah, she might need CPR.
Poor thing.
I know how it is when you get those
I've been
nasty
there.
coughs.
It's not any fun.
It's cough and a cough.
Brooks. It is not 10:45, but you don't have a bid or anything that we have a particular time on, so if you are able to speak, we'll let you speak, yeah.
I want to make sure you hear this.
Okay.
Up there. I am Cindy Brooks. I'm the Sandusky River Watershed Specialist for the Sandusky River Watershed Coalition. And that is administered by WSOS Community Action, which I know you've heard from earlier this month. I am part of the Community Development Department. And part of the reason I am here is last fall I came before the board and asked permission or blessings to submit a nomination for Seneca County to Ohio EPA Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance for what they call their Water Pollution Control Loan Fund for home sewage treatment systems for low income. That nomination has been selected. Seneca County is one of 5 that I submitted for,
Each of the 5 will receive $56,000. That is down from the 2011 year when Seneca County received $160,000. So we've taken a big hit, but everyone across the state has as well. Now, in order to get ourselves aligned to receive a contract so that work can begin, it's just approval of paperwork. So I have with me a contract service agreement to enter between WSOS and the commissioners for me to administer on your behalf, as we had discussed last fall. A few changes. Due to the 2011 year experience, I can no longer afford to administer at a $500 per system. I need to ask the homeowners to pay at least $1,000 in order to make money, because we ran into several instances where contracts needed to be rebid multiple times. That eats into the costs, and there's more trips back and forth to either the commissioners' meetings here with contracts, or to meet with contractors to get contracts signed, or the homeowners to get things signed. So needing to encompass all of that, and because of the reduced amount of systems that we anticipate putting in, which in Seneca County with 56,000, we would anticipate about 4 systems. And we do still have applicants on file from the 2011 year that we will contact and give them a chance to reapply if they have not already done so. And we will also work with the local health department. I've been in communication with them because they sit on our committees, to see if there's anyone that's currently under orders, to get them, if they would be eligible for the program. We want to make sure we get them enrolled, because that takes a burden off the county, because the prosecutor continues to send letters requesting them to put the new systems in, and if they cannot afford to, it's just continual cost to the prosecutor's office. So trying to take the burden off the prosecutor's office, which is a burden to the county. So we work through those kind of processes, and then we have a priority set on the application so that we know how bad the system is failing, at least essentially, to give us an idea, because that is one of the requirements, that they not only meet the income requirements, but they have to have a failing system. You can't just replace a system. So with that, that in place, then the only other thing is I have a packet of documents that needs to go to your prosecutor for review. He needs to approve these as to form. These get submitted then to Ohio EPA, and they will then send you the contract for the principal forgiveness loan. Since this is not a loan that you pay back, it's all principally forgiven, there's no cost to the homeowners. Homeowners, again, are eligible at 2 rates. If they're at 100% poverty or below, they would receive 100% of their system replacement.
Yeah, but where does the 500, the old 500 to the new 1,000, is that paid
That's-
by the homeowner?
That's paid by the homeowner. We ask them to pay.
Is it forgiven then?
Not out of the grants?
That's not that will not be forgiven, but the portion that would come through your office to them to pay for their system installation is completely forgiven. Unless the county wants to pay that, but I didn't think that was the case. I've never run across the county yet that said that.
So they don't get any of the monies to pay that. That has to come from their own means.
That's right. And we've worked with them. Some of them have gone through the WSOS People Helping People Fund. We've had people go through Veterans Administration that they've gotten assistance, because Veterans Services is has a very high priority on keeping people in their own homes. So we've had several of them assisted that way, and some go through different Christian services and that to get assistance if they
There
need.
is recourses for them to come up with the initial
We
fee.
try and help them wherever we
Okay.
can.
Well, you need to have buy-in to your own home too, for goodness sake.
Well, and that's-
Right.
If it's free, it doesn't mean much to you, and you abuse that. But if you got
And these people
buy-in-
do own their own homes. That is one of the requirements, that they own their own home. And that's one of my, if they don't have the money to pay for administration of this, that's the minimal part when they're getting a system that can cost anywhere from $12,000 to $20,000. I'm concerned, what are
You
they
can't
doing
afford $1,000.
for that property otherwise if they can't come up with that for a free system. At 200% or below, they are eligible for 85% of the cost
200% or below.
of the income, the
Poverty level.
poverty level.
Okay.
And that is, and it's not the typical poverty level. This program's usually a year behind. So for the 100% level, a household of 1 to 4, that level is 23,500 or less. For the 85% level or 200% poverty, 1 to 4 person household is 47,000 or less. It's unbelievable the number of people we have that are eligible for those kind of programs. It really is. So, the other change to my contract is that we would like to change the payment process. We had said before that it was until all the systems were complete. I am now at a year and a half and beyond from the time that we started. I'm sitting waiting for all my money from 3 counties because the systems, due to weather constraints, so we're asking that completely installed systems paid out by the state, everything's completed, that we can invoice on a calendar quarter. So if that would be acceptable. I have a contract, I believe, with Stacy, the documents for the prosecutor to review. The sooner we get them in, the sooner we can get started. Nothing too much has changed for the programs from 11 year, except for we're holding some of the contractors a little bit more accountable, things that we've learned, things that we're taking advantage of. Some of the designers, we don't believe actually went on site to design some of these systems. So we're requiring a site visit with the health department, with the designer, with the soil evaluationist and the homeowner and any of their representatives that they would like there as well. So that they can talk about the location, the possible types of systems, and then they also have to provide, some of the designers were trying to slide through designs afterwards that I'm not sure the health department, I received all the health department notes to know that we were getting the system that they had approved, so we're requiring a cover page on the designs that the health department has signed off and the designer has signed off, so we know that we have the full set of specs that we were supposed to. So because there's some questions out there, we try to safeguard everyone so that we're completely sure we're getting what we're needing, and so that the homeowners are kind of safeguarded as well, because we don't want them taken advantage of in this situation either.
Is this every 2 years? Because I noticed you keep mentioning 11. Well, now we're in 13. Is it?
In 2012, there was a program. They did not make it very clear in their emails out to me that it included septic, or we would have applied again in 12. So when 13 came around, I jumped on it. Early indication is for 2014, we're not sure if there's going to be a program. Not sure on the funding yet. We're waiting on a lot of the federal budget stuff, so that will determine a lot. But if there is a program, we will definitely be talking to you about a nomination again, since we're just scratching the surface in the number of systems that are out there that need help.
Questions or comments for Cindy? Well, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't think it'll be a problem from our end. I mean, it's all grant money. We can help out a handful of people and help the environment a little bit.
We'll have 11 systems going in through the 2011 program, so that was
This
a
has
major
been going on.
That was
accomplishment.
160,000.
That was 160,000, yes.
This has been going on for a long time.
We did 2009 during the ERA program, which was the kickoff of this program, and it went over well, and so the state has continually gone after this pot of money to be able to continue, and that's why we hope that 14 will allow us to continue.
We used to do this when I was commissioner before. It must have been a different program then.
It was a grant program that didn't pay 100% or 85%.
Yeah.
I think it was 50% if I
And
remember. It was a
sliding
319
scale.
grant.
319. I knew there was a number
Yes.
with it. Yeah, 319.
That program ended, and that was watershed only. 144 systems we had installed. And that wasn't just in Seneca County, that was all the counties in targeted areas. Now this time, when I administer in Crawford, Wyandotte, Sandusky, and Erie, they want me to work countywide, so not all of them are guaranteed to be in the Sandusky River watershed, but they are benefiting water quality, and they all are, most of them, I should say, are still benefiting Lake Erie. There are a few that we have in Crawford and Wyandotte that will benefit Ohio River Basin.
right, well, thank you for your time.
Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment at this time? All right, anything else from the board? Or the staff? A motion to adjourn, or did you have something, Mr. Goshi?
Yeah, I got another question. In reference to this bypass in 53 thing, which is the most important to the county? The bypass or Route 53?
And the loop road was not necessarily, and tell me if I'm out of order, the loop road that we talked about was not necessarily a bypass, that was an in and out of the industrial park.
Tiber Road, wasn't it?
Yeah, Tiber. It's already improved from the Maury property, the old Maury property,
Yeah.
to this would improve it the rest of the way over to 18. I guess you can call that a bypass. Do you call that a bypass? I just call it a loop.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
I think once you find the study, once the study's conducted, that they're gonna, the bypass or the loop road will
Yeah.
probably be put on kind of back burner when you look part of the larger scale, because I don't see how extending that on is really gonna facilitate a super two
Well,
and a bypass. So my gut on it, and that's why I don't think ODOT isn't gonna move forward on this process until there's a study done where you look at the large picture, 23 to the turnpike.
well,
And that's part of the coalition that we, or I shouldn't say the turnpike, because there's actually, the coalition is to take it all the way up to Route 2.
yeah, well, I rode out there the other day and rode down Tiber Road, and I'm trying to figure out how that would intersect with Route 18, and that would be a pretty big length of the road to intersect with Route 18.
Well,
And
that
Oh, no,
uses-
no, no,
That
no,
uses
that would
existing
connect
county
easy.
roads that goes out, is it 48 or 112? I don't,
Goes out to a church, and then they would take a.
Yeah,
take a,
right. That's
they
Tiber
would-
Road,
they
because
would-
it extends on out there, and that's Hopewell
Next on Stacy's
Township,
well.
Church of Brothers or something.
Yeah,
The
and
Hopewell
right,
Township.
right there, they would kind of
Had to
round the
cut-
road,
had to-
make a slight, a curve in it versus a 90.
Yeah.
And then there is just a small stretch of land that would have to be purchased, that we have a very motivated seller that
Okay.
would sell this stretch of land, which would connect, when it dumps out into 18, would then go over to 224. But I believe when you look at the big picture, that's probably gonna take a back burner. So that would be my,
I was looking at that, and that'd be pretty doggone extensive to go to widen, even to point it, I don't know how many miles it is, but it's gotta be 2-3 miles,
it
I would
was,
think.
the engineer had done some sort of an estimate on that, and I think
Yeah.
it was like a $2 million,
1.8 million.
1.8,
Yeah.
and Mark would come up with 20% of that, because it is county and township roads, it's not a state facility. Senator
not-
Burke was looking to try and get a match, and that looks like it may not be gonna happen, I don't know.
Okay, then I got another question too. Has there been any kind of alternative for funding the study or so forth, other than the $5?
Yes, I did look, I checked with the prosecutor, and I said, what other options are available? And he reported back to me that there is none, that the commissioners can enact. That was
Okay.
just last week that I consulted with the prosecutor, Derek Devine, and I said, give me other options.
Okay,
Prosecutor, give me other options.
The-
And there is none that can help contribute towards a road improvement project.
okay, now I'm gonna get somebody angry at me, but
Can,
Sorry.
Holly wanted to say
I was just
something
gonna
on
say, that's where I met with the stuff that I wanna see us do. I've got a call into Mark. He sent us an email, and which was part of my reason for the call to him, and gave us some information on the vehicle count and that kind of stuff. But there's another question I have for him is, can we sit down and get a plan laid out that might inventory some of these studies that we've already have, this feasibility study there, some of these other things, and then strategically lay out, once we see what that plan is, and I don't know whether that's prioritizing things, but identifying all the things we have, what we think we might need on studies, et cetera, then applying some application of of expected cost of either those studies or whatever it is, but starting to get an idea of what kind of target is it? You know, how big is this target or how small is this target? And then what would be some ways of funding? And whether that the $5 tax is on that list or it's applying for track monies because it hits the dollar figure for that and other things, but that's the kind of what other sources, because I think Mr. Zoller is correct. From the county, I don't know that there's any, I guess he's got that defined. There is no other ways from us unless we can designate the money or Mark has money or whatever, but I just think we need to do that, and I think the coalition will be a factor of that, but that's still separate because that's multiple counties. But I think that's part of it, and I think that's information, if we have it, that'll help the coalition. So I think that's, goes two ways with that effort.
Let me follow up, just one more thing. That's another myth surrounding this, is that this $5 tax could be used for a study. We're not completely sure that could happen. The prosecutor emailed us the other day, said, "It is my understanding from the media," this is from the prosecutor, "that the imposition of a vehicle registration tax is being considered to raise funds for the county to pay for a study of traffic along State Route 53. In reviewing revised code such and such, I'm concerned that these tax funds may not be able to be utilized for this purpose." And then he goes on to say you'd need to get an opinion from the state auditor.
Yeah. Well, we were never advocating using this $5 permissive tax for a study. And we haven't even discussed how, and ODOT's gonna come back with a proposal to us, but as to what portion of the study that the counties are gonna have to pick up. But there's, in my mind, this initiative had nothing to do with paying for the study. That's a total separate process. The initiative of the $5 permissive tax is utilized for one purpose only, to be able to entice ODOT to have some skin in the game, some contribution towards a project, period.
Okay, that brings me to another point. A recent letter to the editors of Tiffin, the advertiser. There was 14 entities supported the $5 tax. Every one of those entities, I think, would benefit from an improvement of the highway. Has any one of those entities committed any money to the studies or so forth?
Well, again, we're not asking for funds for the
Regardless.
study. But
Okay,
No.
has any of those entities supported any kind of funding for this project? Has any of them said, okay, hey, I'll kick in so much just because it's gonna be a benefit to me?
we haven't solicited. At this point, we have not solicited any
Okay,
funds.
that would be an alternative, right?
Will it be sufficient enough to
How do you know unless you try it?
entice? Yeah, well, and that will certainly be a process that we'll go through, but to think that existing employers in Tiffin will bear the full responsibility of this, I think that we would be remiss on thinking that. It's a benefit would really be for the county to increase tax base.
It's not a question of bearing the full cost of it. It's a question of the benefits from that would go directly to those 14 entities in some way, shape, or form.
I think you're talking about the Industrial Management Council.
I don't know. I mean, there was 14 entities signed. I don't know. It was in. I think yours was one of them. And
Yeah, it's industrial. The manufacturers
Idaho and-
in Tiffin
Yeah.
that reap some benefit, and that would certainly be an avenue. But are we good? Would that avenue generate the $1 million that we could potentially generate on a permissive tax? No, I don't think so. Would they be willing to make some contribution? I mean, that's something we'll solicit at some time, but it's not gonna bring in the kind of money that I think would be needed to be able to assist and have some skin in the game. With this project,
A little bit
we're
of
probably
skin.
talking 20, 30, 40, $50 million project.
Right,
I would
but-
think minimum. And so they have local manufacturers come in and contribute 100,000.
Okay, who's gonna get the benefit of the improvement to them?
The
a lot of the
citizens of
people that
Seneca
were in
County.
that, the signatories to that letter were gonna get the benefit from
The,
it.
the biggest benefactor, in my mind, will be the county, because hopefully we're gonna have increased industrial base, which is gonna have increased taxpayers, which is in turn gonna increase revenue of the county.
Okay. But the thing of it is that the people that are gonna benefit from any improvements to their properties or to their operation are gonna benefit from it. And would think that somewhere along the line, there would be some interest from the 14 entities that in contributing toward the cost. I don't know what it would be or anything like that, but I'm just saying that there hadn't been any indication they would contribute. They just want other people to contribute
We don't
$5
know.
for the
No,
license.
that group hasn't been asked, hasn't been solicited, but I feel.
Can't they volunteer?
Yeah.
Okay, no more questions.
Okay. All right, yes.
I got a little comment. I didn't break any of those stones in the cemetery.
These are what they got
Okay,
out there.
there's an example of
Oh,
the,
okay.
Oh, that's what's out.
Until the Boy Scouts can give us the quick fix. These weren't real expensive, but it's better than what was there.
That is what was there, basically.
This is?
That is what was
Oh,
there.
so they
Those
were-
are just slightly larger, I think.
Okay.
So were they-
That is what was there.
okay, so we're replacing what was there.
So was there just deteriorated or were taken?
Bent, deteriorated, you can't read them. Well, you can read them, but you,
Yeah.
So something goes on.
It's not very
with all the
permanent.
information.
Yeah.
It was
got letters
interesting, I
that
saw
goes
one
on
of
it.
those stones back there said unknown.
Yeah.
They didn't know who the person
yeah,
was.
yeah, yeah.
All right, now, do we have a motion to adjourn? Maybe we had one before, I'm not sure.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we are adjourned at 10:52. Thank you very much.